Good evening, everybody.
Yep. Glad it's coming.
I call to order the Bethany City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 6, 2019. And would you please rise for the invocation and the flag salute? Mr. Todd, would you lead the flag salute? And Mr. Knapp, would you lead us in prayer?
Absolutely. Lord God, thank you for bringing us together tonight to give us guidance, to have community time, and just to keep everybody safe in your prayers. We thank you for everything you have given us and for the rain that we received this week. Thank you for your blessings. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 1 is a consent docket, items A through H. Do I have any questions or a motion for approval?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I noticed that the ImageNet bill, the licensing fee is $12,000. I know we've talked about that in the past. Is that an excessive fee or is it an accepted amount? It just seems to me like we're paying ImageNet an exorbitant amount of money every month for services provided. And I think we've either looked into that or we have. Maybe you remind me of what the consensus was, but it seems like that's something that is excessive or should be addressed.
Councilman Palmer, that is for the renewal license for the laserfish that we use. So,
Have we ever bid that out to determine if there's a third party that could provide the same service for a lower amount of money?
we have not.
Any other questions or a motion for
Mayor.
approval? Yes.
I'd just like to clarify that I had asked for a little slight alteration of the minutes because I was present at one of the meetings. Who said that I wasn't, so that's all.
Anyone else? Do I have a motion for approval of the consent docket?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes. I would like to move item 10 to this spot on the agenda, and item 10 is the presentation from the Leaf Task Force. And I know Donnie Richards is going to do the honors.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor. I've met 9 times with these folks. They've put a lot of time out of their own time into this presentation. They've really had a lot of numbers thrown at them. They put a lot of thought into this, and I hope you guys listen. And they have some recommendations, and then they also have some options. So it might take, in a meeting with you guys to decide what you want to do after this meeting. But there is going to be an option of some bags. And if we go that route where we have city-provided bags, the company told me it's going to be a 4 to 6 week delivery of those. So if we decide to do that, we might have to move rather quickly. And this is Mr. Richards. He's going to do your presentation.
Good evening. I'm Don Richards, and I'm a part of the Leaf Task Force Committee that we, like he said, met. And we have some of us here this evening. I think there's 4 of us or 5 of us here out of the 7. In this presentation, you'll see the names of those that aren't here also. So am I loud enough for you and all that? Okay, all right. I want to start by thanking the city manager, city council, the council members, and the mayor for allowing us and choosing us to try and come up with a solution for the leaf issue that's come to light recently. And with that, we'll go, I don't know if he's,
Mayor, could we turn the air conditioner down?
Can you handle the air conditioning?
Thank you.
hit okay. Is it touchscreen? Oh, well, mine looks just like that. It's touchscreen. Okay. All right. Again, this was put together by y'all. You chose individuals from your wards to represent, and there was 7 of us. These are the individuals that were present and selected for this task to come up with some solutions to these issues. So what we came up with is, if you'll notice, there are 4 items on the screen which are already available to every citizen inside the city limits of Bethany. We have big trash pickup. We have what can be considered on demand with your own bags. We have the city yard where you can drop it off. And then we also have the seasonal poly carts that are an option also. The things that we came up with as suggestions that we're going to recommend that the council look very closely to and select is to hold some home composting and mulching classes here, which I'll go over in a second, and also the possibility of the city purchasing bags, City of Bethany bags, and you purchase those, they take them, and you call in and the city picks those up. So if you take a look at what they already have an option at, and I'll go through these quickly since it's already an option. You have the big trash, which is the normal thing of our quarterly big trash, which is 12 cubic yards placed at the curb, picked up, and it was last time I believe we did it over a 4-week time frame that seemed to move fairly quickly. I think they were done before the midweeks on most of those options. This option is at no extra cost to the citizens currently. It's probably the one thing that we are suggesting, though, on this side of it is to move the dates in the later months to kind of coincide. So if we can find somebody that can tell us when the leaves are going to let go and fall on the ground, it'd be great if we could put those exactly where it needs to be. It's moving them, though, could be a task that, could be daunting trying to figure out when that's going to happen. Of course, if we don't, well, anyway, and it's about as close to free as it gets, because currently they pay no extra charge to place those items at the curb, and I'll go into that a little later too. The on demand with your own bags would go something like, you buy your bags at a retailer, any retailer you want, hopefully within the city limits of Bethany. You call Public Works, they pick it up at a rate of $6 per cubic yard with a minimum of $25 for that truck to be able to leave the yard and go out. So what that looks like is you would have the leaves fall on the ground, you pick them up, you call the Public Works Department, they come and measure just like they do any other time when they're picking up. And at an example, if you want to take the big trash so you have an idea what this costs out there, 12 cubic yards at $7 a cubic yard is actually an $84 charge to pick that up. So every resident that we're picking up 12 cubic yards at the big trash time, that's a cost that the city's absorbing on that side of it. And again, that's your own bags purchased wherever you want. So you can get the cost of your bag down to as little as you want, but then you're going to pay for the pickup and the disposal of those. The drop off at the yard is another one that's been available for some time now. And the way that it works, you bring it into the yard, and any day that the yard is open. We're suggesting that you've started doing some on Saturdays. We're suggesting that we maybe look at that and possibly expand that going forward, so that there's a more area for the individuals to drop off their product or their leaves. You take it to the yard. If it's pickup loads that you bring in, flat to the bed is $15. Above the bed is $20, up to the top of the cab is $25, and these items have to be placed in the roll-offs. During big trash, they can drop them on the ground, I believe, if that's not mistaken, but during the regular time frame, it would be the same as any other drop-off down at the yard. You have to put it into the roll-off, because we wouldn't be able to, according to some of the laws or something, we can't put that on the ground during that time frame. The other side of it that you have already with our new carts is the seasonal carts. And these seasonal carts are a minimum of 3 months for each cart, and the pricing is $7.50 per cart, times 3 for the months. The thing with that, they're going to ask you for a little bit of information, who you are, where your address is, and that's to get the cart out there and to get it delivered. Okay? So if you take a look at these, what you could do with this is, if you were to get one extra cart for 3 months, that's approximately 12 times that they will pick up that cart, and it's going to cost a citizen $22.50 for that 3-month time frame. If they got 2 carts for the same 3 months, that's 24 times that they'll pick up the carts. So you're doubling your times you're picking it up, which would equal the $45 amount for the 2 carts for the 3 months. If you had 3 carts, 36 more times during that 3-month time frame when the leaves are on the ground, you would be able to place those at the curb, and the cost would end up being $67.50. So if you're able to spread your time frame out when you're picking up your leaves, you're mulching some of them, you're filling up your carts as you go along, that would be their cost to the citizens currently with the system that we currently have. All right, so the ideas that we came up with was the home composting and mulching classes. OSU OKC down here has people that will come out, do classes. They provide this service to the cities and the areas around the county and whatnot. So it's something that you could do here locally, or it's something that you can post their information on our website and put a page on there or a little area where they could see where the classes are, when they are. They can sign up on their own. They can go right down there and do that. So that's an option that we think is a feasible option to do that on the composting side. That's one of the recommendations that we're doing. The other recommendation, this is where we are talking about, there's other cities that do this, and this is where we came up with the idea. You take, and the city would purchase 35-gallon bags. And to get started, the bid that we got was somewhere around $4,000 to $5,000 to purchase enough bags to have on hand to start this process. These bags are 35-gallon bags. They could be sold. They could be yellow drawstring, or we could change the color. We haven't talked to them about that, but that was what they bid. Hopefully they would package them, because they do them for other cities, in 5 bags per package. There's 40 packages in a case, so they would come in case quantities, and you open it and you sell them out by 5s, which costs the city it would be $0.3325 per bag. Okay? There's another size up there. I'm not sure exactly what size that was for. It's a little bit bigger bag, it looks like, but the cost on that one was $44.13. So the city could sell the bags, 5 bags in a package, for $11.25, which is $2.25 per bag, and then which could be set by the council. I mean, that's not a set fee, but what that fee came from was, we got that information from the city engineer, which assured us that would pay for the bags, pay for the pickup, the disposal, and some money to fund to purchase equipment or use within the Public Works Department, which I'll get to in a minute on that side of it. So the other cities that are currently doing this is the city of Stillwater. They use 35-gallon bags. They charge $1.50 per bag for 5 bags at $7.50. They also have the ability, which we could have the ability too, of they can purchase the bags not only at City Hall or at their city facilities, but they can purchase those bags at OnQ. And OnQ, of course, is given a discounted rate, but then OnQ also makes money on the deal because they don't put things on their floor space without somebody paying for that. So that's the side of that one where, you know, the city would not recoup the full amount that we need to pay for that if it's sold at a retailer like that. Granted, I'm sure there's retailers around. We have the feed store over here on Rockwell. We have a Bethany Main Street. You know, they all maybe want to, you know, everybody wants Bethany to be better. So I would assume that taken to those people, those organizations, that they would possibly maybe want to put those out and just, you check out a certain number of bags for the store and you could pick them up at pretty much all kinds of places. Who knows? We might be able to talk Papa Angelo's into, you know, putting a box on the corner of his deal and selling them for the city's cost so that the city can, you know, recoup the money that's funds needed to take care of that. The other side of it too is, the other end is Edmond does it in a 30-gallon bag, and they charge $3 per bag, and they sell them for 15 bags for $45. And again, they sell them at Crest, Ace Hardware, things of that nature also, which we weren't able to get the dollar figures on those. The one thing about, like I told you on the OnQ side of things, is Stillwater sells those to them, and then by the time they get back around, the city has lost funds on that side of it. That's the only concern about selling them through the retailers on that side. So it's really, you know, an individual's choice. They currently already have 4 options: the big trash, the on-demand, or the city yard drop-off, or requesting extra poly cards. What we're suggesting and recommending is that we do the home composting classes. We post that on the website so they know when they can go down to OSU OKC and do it, or maybe we can have them come here and do it also, or at some of the events that we're currently having. Who knows? There might be a way to get the paperwork and put it in line with our movie nights or our yoga on the lawn and have things like that available to be picked up at that point. And then it's the buy the bags, which we really, that's our recommendation, is for the city to purchase the bags, sell those as the city's bags, and it's used that way. That way, when the person purchases the bag, they've paid for the pickup, the disposal, and the whole thing. So it's all, the dollar amount is included in that. There were some other findings. We spent a lot of time talking about a lot of things. I will tell you, when you put several citizens together in a room and you open up some financial books and you show some numbers to us, we're going to have things going all over in our mind, okay? So we believe that there's a great and immediate need for the city to take a look at our certain sanitation rates and the current rates that we are currently using. If we are not mistaken, we have not raised those rates in 9 years. And if we had and stuck with the cost of living or the inflation rates, instead of in 2011, 1660 rate, the 2019 would actually, we should be at 1876. So the city has fallen behind as far as keeping up with what's going on around them and being able to pay your bills and to make things that, you know, the best that we can be. And what all we're trying to say is that the best days for Bethany are ahead of us. It's going to require everybody to pitch and do their part and pay for their services. It's that way in any other place you go, and we just feel like that the rates obviously need to be looked at and adjusted to what is necessary to maintain the best Bethany that we can be. So with that, and going back to the big trash pickups, we believe and are making a recommendation that you look at, and there be a fee placed on everyone's bill that will give us the ability to cover these big trash pickups. The reason we're saying that is if you take a look at the big trash pickups, in 2018, the total cost, what we got was $71,671 and some change. The first big trash pickup that we did since we've gone to the new trash pickup system cost us $49,000 plus. And we had some long delays in that. We had weather issues in that. We had equipment breaking down. But the cost, the roll-offs, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the roll-off dollar amounts. So as you can see, it's a large amount of money that the city's footing out for people to be able to do this. I've lived here for 40 years. I've put more trash at the curb than you can imagine. My family has put more trash at the curb than you can imagine. And it's time that we all foot the bill that we're putting out there, I believe. And we've talked about it, and we certainly believe that this is an issue and it should be put forward to be looked at. So we're suggesting that you add that to the big trash, to cover the big trash cost. In addition, we believe that that there should be designated specific dollar amounts that come in through these funds, whether it be for the $1.50 for the big trash, or the trash bags for the leaves, or the pickup things, or the special carts that you can get, the seasonal carts. We believe that this money needs to be placed and set aside so it can be used in the Public Works Department and not cannibalized by the other departments out there within the city. If you take a deep dive and look at these numbers, it's real obvious what department in this city carries the majority of the funds that's necessary to run the city and to do things. We get brand new, and I'm not trying to pick on anybody, this is just me, we get brand new fire trucks all the time, and we need those fire trucks. We have to find a way to pay for those fire trucks. We currently have a way, but that way is keeping us from funding our sanitation department and having the equipment necessary for these people to make the big trash pickup happen in a week or 2 weeks, instead of spreading it over 4. If we had the proper equipment, the good equipment, some of these trucks, if I'm not mistaken, we were told the truck used for big trash, the grapple truck, is 19 years old. And those vehicles don't last that long. There's a lot of money expended on those things. So again, we're just making this recommendation to solve this. You know, we were asked to solve a leaf issue. The bags, I believe, can solve that. And the other options that people already have are still there, no way, any way you go about it. So that's what we have. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate all of you serving on this committee. And we will be getting together as a council to try to wade through this and figure out what direction we're going, and taking your recommendations and how this is all going to kind of work out. So I appreciate your time and serving the city this way, trying to help us figure this out. Moving back to item 2 is a public hearing item. Consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 1556, a resolution of the City Council of Bethany, Oklahoma, approving the request of the owner of 8100 Northwest 33rd Street, Bethany, Oklahoma, to construct an accessory building on the property. You have the report.
Yes, sir. Good evening. So this is a special use request for 8100 Northwest 33rd Street for a accessory building that is over 240 square feet. We'll take you through everything. The request is for a 3,000 square foot accessory building at the property. The current zoning of the property is R1, so single family residential, and all the surrounding properties are also R1, single family residential. I forget that I have this here now. The lot is 125 foot wide and 300.36 feet deep. It's 0.86 acres altogether. Currently on the lot is a single family home. They're requesting a 3,000 square foot storage building. The paving on the road is 2-lane residential. Like I said, because of our ordinance, anything over 240 square feet has to go to planning and zoning and then come to city council as a special use for approval. So that's why we're here today. Conditions and restrictions, this is from our ordinance, just to give everybody a little bit of feedback that may not know. The height of the accessory building measured at its highest point shall not exceed the height of the primary building measured at its highest point. This accessory building can't be used as a dwelling unit, so someone can't live in the accessory building. The roof pitch of the accessory building should be the same as the predominant roof pitch of the primary structure. An accessory building shall not be located on a lot not occupied by a primary building, which is not the case here. And then if the primary building on a residential lot is destroyed or removed and not rebuilt within 2 years, then the accessory building shall be removed. So just a little analysis with that in mind. The primary building or the residential home there is 1,200 square feet. The height of the primary building is 16 feet, and the proposed accessory building will be 16 feet. The roof pitch of the primary building is 5, and the accessory building is proposed at 3. The roof material of the primary structure is composite, and the accessory structure will be metal, both on the roof and the exterior wall of the proposed building. The building is going to be set 20 feet back from the rear property line, which is also the setback for that lot, is a 20-foot setback. The pitch does not match the primary structure intentionally because they want to keep the two the same height. So the primary structure and the accessory building structure, they want to keep the same height. The construction of the building is going to be a post frame with a metal shell, and I have some pictures that I'll show you all here in just a second. Additional information, building walls will be 10 foot. The building will contain a sink and a toilet. They do have plans for a gravel driveway to go to the back of the property in the future. Today, late this afternoon, I did receive 2 emails, which was at your seats. I think you saw them. I got them about 4 o'clock this afternoon. 2 people that did have some concerns with the accessory structure. One had drainage concerns, and the other one had concerns about the traffic that might be coming in and out. And the applicants are here this evening as well to speak and answer questions. So currently, this is what the property looks like. This is a view of the back of the house. It's a deep lot. Like I said, it's about 0.86 acres. These are pictures of what they are proposing. So this is what they would like to do if approved this evening. And I'll run you through some of these. Just to note some other improvements that they've already done to this lot. They've done an internal external remodel, new windows, new doors, new roof, paint. The backyard did have a lot of vehicles in it. They've cleaned up the backyard. They've got all the vehicles out and cleaned up the back lot. So they are working on improving this piece of property. Planning and zoning met on July 18th, and they voted 6-2 to recommend to council to approve the proposed accessory structure. The usage of the building is going to be storage. The applicant is planning on doing nothing there but storing vehicles. There won't be any building of vehicles, any mechanic work or anything like that there. It's going to be strictly storage. Electricity and plumbing will be run. They plan on putting up a privacy fence or screening. And if approved, as always, if you approve this, it'll still have to go to our inspectors. They'll have to have stamped engineered drawings, and our inspectors will have to sign off on it as well. And that is where we're at. The applicants are here this evening to answer any questions, and of course, I can answer any questions as well.
Does anyone on council have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. When you say the inspectors will come, does that mean they'll submit a site plan for this particular project?
They won't have to submit a site plan. They'll have to submit engineered specs for the building itself.
Would that include drainage for the building?
It would not.
Okay. Doesn't the special use permit in the ordinance provide provisions for drainage?
You could, it would totally be up to you if you wanted to require a drainage study prior to approval.
Is that a factor to consider in the ordinance as provided to us?
It's a factor to consider. Planning and zoning also brought up the question of drainage. I think the two individuals who voted against this, one of them, their main concern was drainage, as well as I think one of the emails you received today had from a property owner concerns about drainage.
Also, what are the ordinances applicable to drainage for this particular project?
There would not, if it came in, if it was 240 square feet and it was just an accessory structure and it came to us, we would not require drainage studies because it does not require a site plan. So currently, as is, if it came in as just something our building inspectors could sign off on, we would not require a drainage study.
So we don't have an adopted code or ordinance related to this 3,000 square foot building related to drainage?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And so because of that, we didn't make that as a requirement regarding the application?
We have not, no.
Well, I reviewed the special use permit, and I think it says whether utility, drainage, parking, loading shall meet adopted codes, so have we complied with that provision?
I can't answer that.
Okay.
Mr. Palmer, I think the rub here is the site plan is required for commercial and not for residential.
That's correct.
And we know for sure this is not commercial. It'll only be residential storage.
That is what we are being told, yes, sir.
Okay.
And
I
you're
think-
correct, Mr. Hunter, we don't require site plans for residential, only commercial.
Now, looking at the minutes of the planning and zoning, I think that the applicant included some statement related to any drainage issues that might come up, and they would be open to addressing those after the building is constructed. Is that right?
Yes, but I believe, and I will defer to them, I believe they've already brought somebody in to look at the property and drainage. I don't know what came of that, but I think that is correct, if they want to speak to that.
I'd like to hear that if they're available.
Good evening, council, and thank you for listening to us on this. We had a dirt work contractor come in and view the property, and we actually paid for work to get done on drainage already. We just want to be good neighbors, and we cleaned out the bar ditches and basically improved the property around us and our neighbors to be good neighbors.
There's about approximately 3 feet of fall from the back of the property to the front where the bar ditches are. We also carved a slight indention, somewhat kind of a drainage that goes from the back out to the front to help get the water from the back to the front.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, sir, Mayor, I do. Do you have any plans for gutters on this building or French drains to help move that water effectively?
We have plans for gutters, but we have no plans for French drains. I don't know where we would run them to because there's bar ditches in the front.
You got plenty of slope, like you say, to the front edge. Okay,
Sure.
thank you.
Any other questions?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
So you did the dirt work, but you didn't actually have a study done, is that correct?
Exactly. We did the dirt work. We brought in a guy that has 30 years' experience, moving dirt with a tractor. And
Okay, and then, one of you help me here, is the normal setback from the rear 20 or 25? 20. Okay, and then, what about the flooring in the building?
The
Is
flooring?
it concrete?
Concrete.
It'd be concrete, okay. And then the fence height,
The fence height on the back is 6 foot.
yeah, it'll be 6.
6 feet?
Mhm.
And the two structures that are there now will stay?
Yes.
The pole barns, what I call it, and
Right.
the storage barn?
Right.
Okay. And then, this is a minor technicality probably, but your application was put in one of your names. I see that the title on the property is in a trust. I wonder if you the trustee of that trust?
That would be me.
Okay, all right, because it wasn't addressed that way. It was an individual, not a trustee. Then the biggie before me, and I know that planning and zoning address this, but code says that you are to be no more than 10% of the land, I believe. And then it says or, not either or, exceeding 50% of the existing building. And if what I'm being provided says you're 1,200 feet on that building and you're going to build 3,000 square feet, that adds up to 2.5 times, not 50% more. I have a little problem with that. Your roof pitch isn't the same. You have an applicant, you're a neighbor that's concerned about drainage. I have some concerns about use and noise. You are behind me in the parade, 4th of July. And I understand these are the vehicles you're planning to put there?
Yes.
They're loud, even when I turn my hearing aids off. I have a problem with that for the neighbors. And then again, is that a business or a hobby?
We're collectors, it's hobby.
Okay. Why do you have to have utilities if you're not going to do any work or anything? You're just store it there.
It's a
Why?
200-foot walk to go to the bathroom.
The house.
200 foot, yes, away.
There's just a lot of issues here that I have some grave concerns, and we have had problems in the past with big buildings going in, and after the fact, many years down the road, they have been an issue. So I'm expressing my concerns right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor, I have one more question from my, are you going to have any flammable liquids, any fuel stored there? I know some of the cars that you own probably are nitrous or alcohol-based fuels. Will there be any excess fuels there besides what's in the vehicles?
There will be no fuel stored there. We keep that stuff in a Connex on 39th and Council at our acreage over there.
Okay, thank you.
One more question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know much about cars, but I know the older the car gets, the more likely it is to leak something. Antifreeze, oil, gas, whatever. Those are hazards. You want that in the neighborhood?
Well, they could leak, but we're car guys. We're good at taking care of stuff like that, cleaning stuff up like that, and fixing leaks on vehicles.
Okay.
But, and these are good questions, good concerns.
Well, it is. I mean, in today's society, the lack of responsibility of people with chemicals in the past has caused misery for lots of people all over the United States. Why invite another one? That's how I feel.
I understand that, but I assure you, I'm an environmentalist, and I care about our planet, and I care about Bethany.
I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions from council? I know P and Z approved this. Amanda, what is the staff recommendation on this?
That's a hard question because if it was just brought in to the building inspectors as part of just a normal fence or carport or accessory building, I think that our inspectors would probably sign off on it if they had the engineered stamped drawings and approval. I think we're here because of the size of it, and we've had issues with that in the past, is my understanding, which is why it got lumped into the special use. So from that standpoint, staff doesn't really have a recommendation, because to me that's almost more of an opinion versus what we look at, which is structural and that type of stuff, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, is it a 50 by 60? I mean, I'm just doing some quick math here. That's 3,000 square feet. Is that a good guess?
Yes.
50 foot by 60 foot?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I guess my two concerns would be drainage, actually having a drainage study, because this is a very large structure. And then the second is we have special use permits, and it does specify that the roof pitch should match it. And And if that's not something that we are going to enforce, I think we should go back to our special use permit then and change that. But as it stands now, it says that it should have the same pitch. And that's maybe something we look at in the future also.
The pitch is not a problem. That's very easy to change. I've been in construction all my life, and this is Billy Clapper. He's the general contractor. He's also run a construction company all of his life.
But that's going to change your height. Now you're going to be over your 16-foot height to
No,
match
that-
the house.
That would just change the perimeter height, not the peak.
If you keep 10-foot walls, the peak is going to go up with a 512 as opposed to a 312.
Sean is referring to lowering the sidewall height.
Right.
We should-
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
question. I'm looking at your sketch here. Will you have some kind of driveway? I don't see the driveway on the sketch, or how,
That was just a rough sketch to see if we could get it passed. If we
Okay.
get it passed, we'll do proper drawings. We really haven't decided on the driveway. Our concern is if we put a concrete driveway going in back there, that's going to divert water. So it might just be Chet or a gravel driveway to help with the water issue.
okay, so my other question related to that, will you be driving those vehicles in and out, or on a trailer or something, or?
Mainly trailering them in and out. And we just need a place to put them. You know, we don't get them out very often. I know that there's some noise concern. There's a couple of them that are very loud, and we're considerate neighbors. We don't want to bother our neighbors, so.
Now, with the house there, do you anticipate that being a rental? Do you anticipate renting?
A friend of mine's going to live there.
Okay.
Is this where the cars will be worked on or
Oh, no.
simply stored?
No, just stored.
If this was passed tonight, what guarantee do we have as far as the changing of the roof, possible drainage study, things of that nature, as far as?
If you passed it this evening with conditions, it would be on staff and the building inspectors to work with them and not issue any permits or licenses or anything like that until those conditions were met. And we would monitor that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think that might be a feasible alternative to the extent that the ordinance doesn't require a drainage study. And if there is a situation in the future, obviously, our ordinances are kind of a living document to the extent we can amend and provide specific provisions for pitch and drainage, depending on the circumstances. I think that's kind of where we're at this point. Unfortunately, this is what happens when you have applicants that come and request certain structures to be built under the auspices of the ordinances that we have now. So that's something we should look into.
Mr. Mayor, may I have another comment, please?
Yes, ma'am.
I agree there may need to be some issues and attention to what we have on the books right now. But what we have on the books right now, I adamantly, like I said a while ago, that the code doesn't say or either or, it says or. And this building is too big according to what's on the books right now. And yes, planning and zoning made it clear that you would need a drainage study. Not do the work, they said study. Now, I went by there today, the place looks great. It looks great. But that really, and I commend you for caring about Bethany and having a good-looking place. And definitely you cleaned out the drains, there's no question. But there's still the problem with this building should not be in that location. If you need storage, you need to look someplace where they have storage. Not in a residence, just not in a residence. If the mayor's ready for a motion, may I make, okay? Sorry.
Can you explain that, what you were explaining to me?
Yes. The resolution as written, it simply approves it. And so that the question that the mayor had is, If the council wants to add some additional requirements, what I would simply do is, under the resolution part of it, just put the additional, and council requirements or something like that. So you would still, the action would still be to approve the resolution, but if you want to add some additional conditions, then I can make that work with the existing resolution.
Mayor, this
Yes,
being a
sir.
public hearing, we ask if the audience, if there's anyone here would like to,
Yeah,
sorry if you're already going to do that.
I was getting there. I just want to get my question answered first. Thank you for being here tonight to answer these questions. And on that note, is there anyone from the public here that wants to address this topic? Yes, sir.
Yes, Greg Shirey, 6501 Northwest 31st. I don't see very well, but I recognize voices. Watch television pretty closely, and I believe these gentlemen have some cars that are occasionally on TV, and every place that I've noticed or watched that they work from and do work on their cars are extremely nice and very well taken care of.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Do I have a motion
I would like to make a motion.
to approve this with conditions, council conditions?
You, as a council, you would need to decide what additional conditions you want to put on there, if any. So that might be something that you all talk about to see if you can get some agreement on what those additional conditions might be. You know, of course, Councilmember Larson would like to make a motion. If it's maybe for denial, I mean, you might entertain that first. So there are several different ways that you could go, but that might be an expedient way to figure out the direction of the council.
Okay. Mrs. Larson, you have a motion?
I do have a motion based on the grounds that I had previously stated that we deny this building being built.
Do I have a second to Mrs. Larson's motion?
Then may I make another if it's not seconded? I would ask that we table this until such time that the applicant has the time to provide the drainage study and a more detailed information so that we can make an informed decision.
Do I have a second?
I'll speak on that. If that is what we decide, if that's what we're going to accept as a council, I'd rather see us just approve it upon those criteria being met, so it's not coming back to us again for another discussion.
Agreed.
So-
As suggested.
So who's going to approve the drainage?
Well, you've got a second, you've got a motion on the table, so you want to see if there's a second.
So far, there is not.
Mr. Mayor?
Is there a second?
Did you second it?
I did not.
So with no second, the motion dies. What on council would you want to see done to get this approved tonight?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, at the sake of sounding redundant, I have the fullest confidence in staff that they can manage this, both community development and inspections. I think probably to maintain consistency, we need a drainage study, just like we would require from anyone else. This is a large building, and I think that's only fair that we ask everyone else to do that. We requested a drainage study, that they comply with all of the aspects of wall height, pitch, roof pitch, and all the other things that anyone else is asked to comply with. And based on those, staff will report back any discrepancies in that, and work would stop immediately when they can't get building permits.
Do you have a motion?
I will put that in the form of a motion, yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to take just a second and write it down so that it's clear to everybody, mainly me. Okay, so.
Well, I don't know that I can repeat that now. You were supposed to get
It's a
that the
test.
first time.
It's a test, I know. Okay, so, subject to a drainage study?
Subject to a drainage study.
In advance of construction.
And all the other requirements stipulated by Community Development and our code enforcement division.
Oh, yeah, that's already in there.
Right.
Like a
So-
roof pitch drainage study.
Yeah. And so, I will include, and what was it? I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mayor?
Roof pitch, I think was one.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
What's the difference between the requirements for this building and as a residential or commercial building? Do we know that?
Repeat that.
Differences in, and as to your code, is if it's a commercial building, it requires a drainage study.
Okay,
This is residential.
right, so that's the only difference?
Well, we do have another aspect, and this came up a few years ago, putting a metal building inside of a neighborhood, and we've got a whole lot of feedback from that. So we could argue the point, too, that we're doing something that in the past we've denied another citizen by putting something that doesn't necessarily match the existing structure.
Just so the council's aware, there are many metal buildings on that block.
Well, there's not any that's 50 by 60, though.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you've got to admit, it's a departure from convention. It's a huge building.
Yes, sir, it is.
It is a big building, but we have a few neighbors that also have comparable buildings.
And they've been there a while.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Herron, you had something?
I think there is, just for clarification, the difference between if this was on residential or commercial is much more than just a drainage study. In fact, I would like for staff to elaborate on that, just for clarification, since that was asked.
If this was a commercial building, it would require a site plan, an entire site plan, which would revert to our site plan ordinance, which would have everything from where utility lines are at to where streets are at, markers on the property, and a myriad of other things. We do require site plans for commercial buildings and commercial parking lots currently, but we don't have anything necessarily when it pertains to these accessory buildings. And maybe it is something that we need to add to our ordinances for when these situations come up. I believe in the past, it's just been dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Matt, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. No, I appreciate this latest motion, and I think it's important that we're judging it on the grounds of the ordinance and not on the grounds of whether their cars are allowed. It's their property. They've been involved in the community. They're involved in the parade. So that this not be a judgment on whether we like some certain thing, but on what the ordinance says.
Would you like to read that motion?
Oh, this is the resolution portion of the ordinance. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bethany that the request of the owner of 8100 Northwest 33rd Street in Bethany to construct an accessory building at that location in accordance with the application on file and subject to the construction meeting all applicable city codes, obtaining a drainage study, and meeting all requirements of staff, and obtaining compliance with the pitch of the original structure.
I think that's what I said, yes.
Just like that.
Can you guys live with that?
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff.
Item 3 is consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 1557, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Bethany authorizing a pyrotechnical display for the Children's Center Gala on September 21st, 2019. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Thank you, Tim.
Sorry.
I know it's going to be easier than anything.
Thank you. Item 4 is consideration of possible adoption of resolution number 1558 at the City Council of the City of Bethany, Oklahoma, approving the Northwest 39th Gateway Policy Guide, a policy for the implementation of the Northwest 39th Gateway Project Plan and related increment districts. Do I have any questions? I know we have Jeff Sabin from the Bachelor Group with us tonight. If anyone has any questions. Would you like to give us a report?
Sure. So this item and the next item on your agenda are policy guides that'll help the council and the Bethany Development Authority decide how to allocate TIF revenues when they're generated in the increment districts that you created under the 23rd Street Corridor Project Plan and the Northwest 39th Gateway Project Plan. Now, basically, these goals set up, these policy guides set up two different things. One is a procedure.
If we could, not to interrupt, I'm sorry, but we need to, could you speak up to the extent, maybe Barry could adjust the microphone? There are members of the audience that are indicating they can't hear. So we want to accommodate them as best we can. So I apologize for the interruption. Mr. Mayor, thank you for allowing me to do that.
Sorry about that. So basically, the policy guide set up a policy for how the city will allocate its TIF revenues from its two project plans and its four now planned increment districts. They set up specific categories of assistance for private developers based on furthering the different goals espoused in each project plan. They maintain the city and the Bethany Development Authority's discretion on granting any assistance to developers. It's very clear in each policy guide that nobody is entitled to any assistance. Projects will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis based on staff, the TIF Advisory Committee, and ultimately the council and the Bethany Development Authority's determination about whether the project actually merits any assistance and is actually going to be positive for the city overall. It ensures that granted assistance is funded by revenues that the project specifically will generate. And then it describes methods for spending unobligated revenues on the public improvements project cost categories. The assistance request process is fairly straightforward. A developer will submit an application for a specific development assistance category. That application will be reviewed by staff under the policy guides, criteria, and eligibility guidelines. They will submit a recommendation to the TIF Advisory Committee that the city has already established. They will review the application as well in terms of eligibility, and they'll also recommend how much, if any, assistance is merited and what any kind of performance parameters they think would be necessary in any kind of assistance agreement. Based on those recommendations, the city attorney would prepare a development assistance agreement with that developer that would come before the Bethany Development Authority for consideration and in front of the Bethany Economic Development Authority as an informational item. And then, assuming that you approve the agreement, it would just be implemented according to its own terms.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Okay, hold on. Can you take a question now, or
Oh,
are you
yeah,
still finished?
go first.
These are guidelines, correct?
Correct.
To the extent that our TIF policies have already been approved, these are guidelines to developers to consider when applying for tax increment financing. Is that true?
That's true.
So these guidelines could be changed or amended in some capacity by the council at any point in time. Is that true?
That's true.
So these aren't exact set in stone rules. These are guidelines to encourage the developers to understand what the city of Bethany expects related to development by way of a tax increment finance district in the city of Bethany. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The policy guides also provide within them opportunities for developers or the city to propose different methods or means of assistance that may fall outside of the four assistance categories that are created. If the developer proposes that, they'll also have to submit justification to the city. And the city also has the ability to waive specific eligibility requirements or specific provisions in generating assistance. So there's a little bit of flexibility built into the policy as it stands too, in addition to it being a city policy that can be amended at any time.
I know that we appointed a TIF Oversight Committee that consists of Steve Palmer, Councilmember Herron, and Jeff Knapp. And so I'd kind of like to hear at some point in time from you three your thoughts on these guidelines.
I just want to say, Councilmember Palmer summarized it very well, clarified exactly what this document is. I don't think I could do better than that. Thank you for that, for clarifying what the document is. So there may be some specifics in there that there may still be questions about, but that's what it outlines. So, and thank you, Jeff.
John, you have anything to add?
Yeah, overall, I'm very pleased with this policy guideline. I think it sets good parameters for where we're at. And as far as, hopefully in us passing this, this tells developers what we are comfortable with doing. So if we want to go outside of it, I mean, that's going to be up for debate and up for review. And with this policy and us passing this, if it's passed, it gives a good foundation. Here's what you can expect, and here's what you would come to. The only thing that I would like to add is in the TIF Advisory Committee itself, that there is several staff members appointed to it, and it says another designee of the city manager. But I would actually like to have the city manager on there himself, if that's possible to amend. So whoever sits in there, I hope for a lot of involvement, and I hope our city manager will be very involved with any of these TIF plans coming forward, because these are major developments for our city.
Steve?
Just to add to my previous comments, and thank you, Councilman Knapp, for the compliment. I'll take anything I can get. This is a process and a policy to developers that they can review to consider investment and development in Bethany. And the process for approval by the city council is by a supermajority for any type of agreement with the developer. Is that right?
That's actually not correct.
Okay.
A supermajority is only required if you're going to be issuing any kind of debt backed by TIF revenues.
Okay.
If it's just a pay-as-you-go type
Get
arrangement.
closer to the mic, please.
If it's a pay-as-you-go kind of arrangement and not TIF-backed debt, it would just be a simple majority approval.
Okay, but the process would include public involvement, public hearings, things like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're not eliminating, by adopting these policies and procedures, any type of input that could be provided by the public or the residents of the city of Bethany, is that right?
Every economic development agreement that would come under these policies would be approved at a public meeting of the Bethany Development Authority.
As long as we understand that, I think this is a great step forward, and I agree with Councilman Herron. This is what we expect, and we're open for business, and we welcome any and all developers to look at our TIFs.
Does council have any questions?
I would just like to add another note. So a couple things in this policies, just for everyone who's listening. We do have in there, we set up our policies to where 90% of the sales tax can go into the TIF bucket, but only 50% of that can go towards retail recruitment. And we also have in our policies for a maximum of 10 years for retail recruitment on our sales tax. So I just wanted to point that out.
That 50% limitation includes all of the assistance categories as well. Sorry. That 50% sales tax limitation on assistance applies to all of the categories, not just the retail recruitment category, but yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
That applies to the 39th and the 23rd?
Yes, yes, that provision is in, I believe it's in both.
I saw it in the 39th. I don't think I saw it on the 23rd. I may be wrong on that.
Page 133.
It's on page 4 of the 23rd Street policy guide and on page 5.
Which is our next item on the agenda.
Very good.
Are there any other questions?
Duly noted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I appreciate the guidance.
Different page number.
Do I have a motion for approval for Resolution 1558? Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes. Item 5 is consideration of possible adoption of resolution number 1559 of the City Council of the City of Bethany, Oklahoma, approving 23rd Street Corridor Policy Guide, a policy for the implementation of the 23rd Street Corridor Project Plan and Increment District Number 2, City of Bethany. Does anybody have any other questions? Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes. Item 6 is consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 1560, a resolution of the City Council of Bethany, Oklahoma, casting a vote for trustee of the Oklahoma Municipal Retirement Fund to fill the expiring term of at-large trustee representing the entire membership.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Yes.
Who's the incumbent member at this point in time?
I'm not looking at the list currently, but I believe his name is Robert.
Johnston?
Robert Johnston, yes, correct.
The city manager for the city of Frederick, correct?
Yes.
I'd make a motion to approve appointment of Robert Johnston.
I'll second.
Please cast your votes. Item 7, consideration and possible approval of ordinance number 1974, an ordinance adopting a new revised Title 15 of the Bethany Code of Ordinances, which is a code of comprehensive land development regulations pertaining to building regulations and construction, oil and gas drilling regulations, mobile and manufactured homes and travel trailer regulations, regulation of signs, regulation of subdivisions of land, regulation site plan submittals, providing for flood damage prevention regulations, establishing requirements for public improvements, providing zoning regulations, regulation of portable temporary storage units, providing for codification, repealer, and severability, and declaring an emergency. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I want to commend, we had some residents, Sue Manor. Did I mispronounce your last name? Mauer. Was willing and able to help review this 248-page document. And as an attorney who likes to push paper, Mrs. Mauer did an excellent job to help us get to that point, and I would like to publicly thank her for doing that. I'd also like to commend Amanda McClellan for her participation and willingness to sit in a room with us to go through this page by page and ensure that we had a document that was presentable and functional. And also, now that we have this Title 15, the developers can look at this, rely on it, and move forward with any plans that they have related to zoning and developments within the city of Bethany. Now, those are the positive issues. The negatives were related to the firm that we initially hired to do this. It costs a lot of money, unfortunately. And in the process of looking through this, that was something that we did that probably wasn't the best idea. And I'll concede that, and I think a lot of people understand that. But under the circumstances, I took note of that, and I will apply my understanding and the lesson we learned to future situations when this does come up. So with that, I would make a motion to adopt City Ordinance 1974.
I'd second that if I could ask that we add something to your motion at the recommendation of Planning and Zoning, in that we include those codes as adopted by the state of Oklahoma. Would you amend your motion? I would second.
I would amend that motion, and I think we have a living document to the extent that there are proposed revisions that we'll finalize and get to council, which will be approved based upon our discussion and revisions. And council may need to look at that as well, but we're good to go at this point in time, in my opinion.
Yes, sir.
I was just going by the recommendation of Planning and Zoning. I will not second.
Excuse me, what did you say?
I won't second.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, item 7A is approval of ordinance number 1974 on reading by title only. I have a motion, I have a second. Please cast your votes. Seven B is approval of sections 1 through 4 of ordinance number 1974. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
Let me say something on the emergency clause. Just to remind the council that if you don't approve the emergency section on this, that the ordinance in its entirety, all 248 pages would have to be published. So just my thought would be, it would not be in the best interest of the citizens for the city to incur that expense. And also, since there have been a series of public hearings about this, I think that the public is pretty well versed, and it would inure to the benefit of the council to pass the emergency section.
Based on that recommendation, I would move that we pass the emergency section.
I'll second that.
Please cast your votes. Item 8 is consideration and possible approval to award bid for emergency sewer repair at Northwest 46th and Peniel to Kraft Reynolds Construction Company in the amount of $237,622. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes. Item 9 is approval of the fiscal year of 2020 collective bargaining agreement between the City of Bethany and the IAFF Local 2085. Do I have any questions or motion?
I move.
Second.
Please cast your votes. I would like to say, before moving on to item 11, since we have already dealt with item 10, that I think it is important that we really look at, when we come to these agreements, that we are keeping our expenses versus revenues in correlation with these agreements, so that we can make sure we are able to afford these things as cost of living increases and things of that nature, and maybe even have to have a discussion as to how is the way we fund these agreements the proper way. So I think that's something I just wanted to make sure I said. Item 11 is citizens' opportunity to address the council on general topics related to city business or services. There's a 3-minute limit. No action may be taken on matters under this item. Is there anybody here that would like to address the council? Please step to the microphone, speak your name and your address, or if you're not comfortable doing that, write it down and hand to Mrs. Lamar.
I'm Elda Davis, 7219 Northwest 32nd. And first, I want to thank you for your service to our community. but I also want to chastise you. Several months ago, and some people said it was over a year ago, I couldn't hardly believe it, I spoke to the council about the fact of a water problem in Bethany and that we should solve it before any new development, either commercial or residential, should be passed. Immediately after the meeting, I was approached by the economic development person and a city councilman to assure me that Bethany would never run out of water because, after all, we can turn on the Oklahoma City spigot. What is a stage 3 and stage 4 water rationing if not running out of water? Water rationing is a self-defeating solution when our city depends on some of its revenue from water. How much money is the city losing in revenue because of it? It appears to me that until this governing body starts functioning more correctly, as in planning for the future and solving problems before a crisis, I might as well let my yard go back to sand and crabgrass as it was in 1974 when I moved in.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Can I, on that point, can I say, just as an example?
We'll need you to step to the
I don't
microphone.
want to do that. I can talk loud from here. I'm a little disappointed because out of about 60 or maybe 100 people.
Could we not hand the
just
mic
like
to
you about
her?
the
Sure.
water, I don't see any of
Can
it.
we
Can
bring the
somebody
mic
hand
to
her the
you?
microphone?
Let's bring the mic
Phil,
to
can you help her, please?
Thank you.
Well, I'm retired as a financial planner, and, excuse me, I'll just use this as an example. 10 years ago, when I chose Bethany to retire in, I chose it because I thought Bethany was a real jewel. 10 years ago, my yard was dirt. $4,000 a year it's taken me to bring my yard to look the way it should look for retired people when you've got more time. So now $4,000 in 10 years, if I did that a year, that's $40,000. And in one season, if we keep watering like we're watering, I won't have a yard. Well, so if I do the same thing for the next 10 years, I spend another $40,000, now I've got $80,000. $80,000 in my yard, and one season you all can destroy that. Well, when I was a financial advisor, as people were wanting me to help them how to retire, we would plan how much you need to have when you retire. And there was some things you can't anticipate, like medical. We couldn't do that, but everything else we could pretty well have an idea. Did not plan on using $40,000 in 10 years for water. I didn't buy a house in Bethany to have a dirt yard. I don't want a dirt yard. So my question is, what is Plan B? What's it going to take? How much longer? One day a week will not keep my yard alive. And I can't keep throwing good money after bad money. I'm not a gambler, you know? If I was a gambler, I would buy stock. I don't. I buy investments. And I thought my home in Bethany was going to be an investment. Instead, we are airing our dirty laundry in public. Everybody knows Bethany has no water. Don't buy a house in Bethany. Why would you want to buy a house in Bethany? They don't have any water. And the property values have gone down too much, and this water just extenuates the problem. And a lot of you people live in Bethany, you know what I'm talking about. And the legs that hold us up for our retirement, there has to be three, you know, Social Security, retirement, our real estate, our home is part of our retirement. And the value's going down. For me to move out of here because I don't want a dirt yard, I would take a beating on my property. And I don't get any answers. What's our plan B? Do we have a plan B? When are we going to have 2 days watering, 3 days? Help.
I'm in full agreement, ma'am, but there is no action may be taken on matters under this item. But there is Plan B. There's a lot of work being done to this in this issue. This didn't happen overnight, and it's not going to be fixed overnight. I know. And all of our yards are dying as well.
Well,
And
I was
so
told
we're in
10
full
years
agreement.
ago, 10 years ago. So just I just want to know, what's Plan B? Those 50 people I talked to in Western Oaks, we all want to know what Plan B is so we can have some hope. I mean, you know it. You guys know the Plan B? The light at the end of the tunnel? Do you know? Is there one?
We've been talking for 2 years about the priority in this city. Number one priority is water.
But you can't share it with us?
The plan is to drill new wells, but that's very expensive. And when you're totally dependent upon sales tax, you have to find other means to be able to pay for this. I've been on the phone this week, last week. City staff has been dealing with this for a number of years. I've been looking at things like the Water Resource Board or the revolving fund, looking at other options about what's caused this situation for us to be in, because it wasn't self-inflicted. And so because of that, there's a lawsuit going on. We're not sitting around waiting for a hopeful payday on a lawsuit. We can't afford to do that. We have to have water.
Good.
And so we are addressing this as best we can. Obviously, in the heat of the summer with people's lawns, it gets extremely frustrating. And it's a frustration for every single one of us.
Well, have we hired a civil engineer to come in and do a study? Do we have $1 million, which is probably what it's going to take?
It's going to cost more than that. A lot more than that.
Well, these figures I was looking at, if I keep going like I'm going, I will have spent $100,000. So we take several of us that spend $100,000 in 20 years.
I understand. There's 3-minute limit, which I never seem to remember to push this button and get started, but when it's this frustrating to all of us, I don't really want to hold people to 3 minutes. But is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
Representing Ward 1, though he no longer lives in Bethany. In fact, he's lived in North OKC. The people of Bethany deserve to be represented by someone who resides in their ward, and if that person chooses to move, the people deserve to choose their representation through election.
The mic is going to need to go over there for those two gentlemen eventually, please. They've been trying to get in.
All right. My name is Sam Mitchell. I live at 7404 Northwest 18th. I'd like to point out that a lot of people in Bethany couldn't care less if they had to spray grass in the yard. They don't water, they don't tend to water, they never have water, they never will water. When we got these big blue poly cars, we had the option of getting one car or more than one car. If you got more than one car, you paid more than if you got one car. Simple. Why not opt in to a water thing where you can either water your yard or you don't water your yard? Because a lot of people don't care. We care, and we would like to pay more. And I know it would be one of these deals where you'd be even paying more on your wash water and your bath water and your dishwasher water. You'd be paying more across the board, but some of us are willing to do it. And that way you could opt in just like you do with the big blues. That's all. That's it. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Marvel Flaghurst, Northwest 29th, 6600, on the open sewer. Complaint is, I spent $1,200 4 months ago for a yard. The city comes by and sprays and kills part of it. What are they doing down in the ditch when I take care of it? That's what I'd like to know.
They're currently taking care of your ditch in front of your house?
I keep it clean right by our property. I try to mow on the city side. Well, somebody came by spraying. I don't know if that was the city or somebody, but they sprayed part of my yard after I spent $1,200 having it resodded. Just keep them away from that part and I'll take care of it. That's what I'm asking.
Thank you.
Sir, could I get your address again? Sir, what was your address?
What was your address?
What's your address?
6600 Northwest 29th Street.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Greg Shirey, 6105 Northwest 31st. I just wanted to say I don't blame anybody in the horseshoe for the watering problems or for the water. You people don't generate it. It comes from the ground. But I'm retired from Oklahoma City from the Water Quality Division, and that was my job, to make sure water plants had raw water. I don't know what the capacity, I don't know how much more water Bethany can treat. But I would like to say, just as a temporary fix, if you could get with the city of Oklahoma City and see if they would sell you untreated raw water, because your treatment plant is so close to the canal where they used to let water down to Hefner, where the north side of Oklahoma City made water. But if you could purchase raw water, run a temporary line from over by Stinchcombe, where the little dam is, to the Bethany water plant, which is on the same side of the canal. You could put poly pipe in over by Stinchcombe, where the little dam is, to the Bethany water plant, which is on the same side of the canal. You could put poly pipe in. It wouldn't be a real expensive project. Until you've got some money for wells or things of that nature, you could at least get some raw water to our plant. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kelly Rawson, and I just am kind of curious. I work for an environmental consulting firm, and if Bethany has a water problem, if our citizens of the city of Bethany choose to drill their own private well, is that a problem?
I don't know, but I will look it up. If you'll give me your contact information, I'll
Absolutely.
look it up in the code and find out. Some cities do allow it, some prohibit it, but I apologize, I just don't know right off the top of my head.
I live in Western Oaks, and there are multiple homes in our neighborhood that do have water wells, but when you call the city of Bethany, they tell you they're not allowing any wells in Bethany.
Yeah, I don't want to guess, so I'll get your contact information. I'll look at it when I get home this evening and send you an email.
Okay, to me, that is an easy fix. If citizens want to pay more money, if they're willing to drill a well, why not let them?
Because they're not drilling wells in Bethany. I've been that route. I've called everybody and done everything, and they said right now there's no water.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the council?
If I might. I'll make this quick. I know this is a long meeting and then everyone's trying to get out of here. But Bethany holds a special place in my heart. My step family is from here. My late stepmother, was born here. And, right now my name is Miles Rahimi, and I'm coming off of active duty in the Navy, and my home is Oklahoma. I grew up in Edmond. I graduated Edmond Santa Fe, went to school here, University of Central Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Now, Councilwoman Larson, I really admire your passion and everyone's passion here in taking part of government, because that's important, is getting involved. Unfortunately, passion is lacking when it comes to representation against ideas that do not coincide with our values. And our values were evident with our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, which isn't there in other parts of our country, and it's unfortunate. And, I'm a no-name. I've never met any of you. I met Mayor Westmoreland just prior to the meeting. I have a vision. I have a belief that I can be the voice against this insanity that is happening and happening again. I'm only 30 years old, but I've got a lot of passion and a great vision. And I'm considering running for Congress for this district because it's important to me that the values that we share prevail, because America, the American experiment, is so overwhelmingly beautiful. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I'm Emmeline German from 3001 Oak Ridge Drive, and I want to just respond a little bit to the LEAF question and the LEAF presentation this evening, and just to make this one comment that when you communicate with us, please compare apples to to apples. To say that you're doing 12 cubic yards, and then you're doing so many polycarts and so many leaf bags, it really all comes down to how many gallons of leaves compared to what we've been doing with our gallon bags. If we've been using 55-gallon bags, how many cubic yards is that? So that we can compare and know how we want to do things. So, I'm trying to figure out, does 12 cubic yards equal 2,412 gallons? That's liquid gallons. I don't know what it would be in leaf gallons. So if you could just help us with that when you make the final announcement of whatever you decide to do, help us be able to compare apples with apples.
Thank you.
Or leaves with leaves.
Is there anyone else?
Arville Williams, 4001 Patty Lane. I filed a FOIA request, Freedom of Information, Open Records request for the agreement between the City of Bethany and the Oklahoma City on the water last week. City of Bethany did not fulfill that request, however, the City of Oklahoma City did. I also did a timeline research to try and find out what was going on with that agreement, because I understand from working with a lot of municipalities that usually those agreements go on sometimes for decades, 25, 30 years in some cases. What I found was that in 1992 was the prior agreement. It lasted 17 years to 2009. In 2009, the new agreement took place for a 10-year agreement under the rate structure that was promulgated by the City of Oklahoma City at that time. They had Chapter 7 had a renewal clause in it that said during year 8, the City of Bethany could unilaterally renew the agreement. As far as I can find, no record of that being done. If there is one, I wasn't provided it. They had a 1-year window to do that. In November 2017, November 1st actually, the City of Oklahoma City promulgated a new rate structure. That new rate structure was very, very damaging to the City of Bethany. All of these milestones happened during most of this current council members and mayors being on the board, and during the rotation and revolving door that we had for city managers, which is probably why it all got overlooked. In the Thursday, March 8, 2018, the Oklahoma City sent an email to the city engineer, which was provided by the City of Bethany, indicating that they would raise the rate on the water they were purchasing this year to $12.54 a thousand. Now, that was 503 days, 1.4 years, before the city took an emergency meeting to address that and authorize the acting city manager, to begin negotiations with the City of Oklahoma City. So I have 3 questions for the council. 1, you knew the rate increase was coming. You knew it for 1.4 years. How many, if any, test wells were made during that period? 2, the rate structure currently promulgated by the City of Oklahoma City does allow for the purchase of raw water, and it can be negotiated at $1.74 a thousand from Lake Overholser, Hefner, or the other lakes. Was any consideration, any estimates, any engineering done to determine if that was possible or achievable? Again, you had 1.4 years. You knew the rate increase was coming. As a result, we went from purchasing in 2016 with odd-even rationing, I think you guys call it Tier 2 now, to Tier 3 and Tier 4, simply because of financial considerations. It's just too expensive to buy the water at $12.54. That's the standard commercial rate for wholesale water. In other words, they're charging you the same as if you were a contractor doing earthwork. So my question to the council is, what was done in that 1.4 years that you knew this was coming? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I would like to say in regards to the raw water and studies, in your question 2, I believe it was, I would personally have to ask our city engineer what was done and what he's been doing. And like the gentleman here said, what the capacity is in our wells, or our ability to, not wells, but our ability to treat the water.
Plant's 10 million gallons.
Excuse me?
The raw water plant's 10 million gallons a day, 10 million gallons a day at full capacity. I think there's one clarifier down, so you can probably run it about 7 or 8 million gallons a day. I apologize. But you're looking at running it right now with the wells at 2.9, I think, is your max capacity.
Can you come to the microphone,
Okay.
please?
I apologize. I probably should not have spoke out. It's my understanding that the water treatment plant is a 10 million gallon per day facility. You're currently running at about 2.9 million from the wells. And the last time I spoke with, spoke with anybody about there was one clarifier basin down, so you have a little reduction in capacity. As it is, it has more than enough raw capacity to cover anything you want to put at it, and much more than the city really needs to use.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Item 12, City Attorney's Report.
I asked the mayor before we got started today, one of the few benefits to being an old lawyer is that you get to embarrass young lawyers. So I'm going to ask my 2 law clerks, Gavin and Cassandra, to stand up. They are students at the University of Tulsa, and they're completing a municipal law preceptorship. So they have been following me to Bristow, and on Thursday we go to Winona and Owasso. So firsthand, they're learning about municipal law. So thank you for being here, and I hope the council will and you all will stop and speak to them on the way out, because there aren't very many students that are interested in doing what we do. So thank you.
Thank you. Item 13, City Manager's Report.
Yes, I have a couple of things to say, Mayor. First, on the water, we are in negotiations right now with Oklahoma City. We've had these taps in place for several years. We just haven't had to turn them on. Because of the reduction in our wells, we just haven't been able to pump enough water. Our capacity right now with the wells we have is somewhere around 2.5. At the peak, it went up to 2.9. And we had to purchase some water about 10 days ago, and about 20 days ago from Oklahoma City Water. We purchased about 2.5 million gallons so far. And yes, we are trying to avoid those rates, but we are in the process of negotiating some more advantageous rates that will bring it down within range. So until we get that done, we've been trying to avoid purchasing that water. The conservation measures have been working. Our engineer monitors that every day. And we're hoping that if it continues to improve, that we can get back to a level 2, which would allow you to water your lawn twice a week. So we're hopeful of that. Also, there was a lot of questions about the library. It seems like it keeps getting put off, but it looks like it will be sometime in October, sometime between the first week and the last week of October, depending on how negotiations go here. We have a meeting with the contractor the 15th of next month to get some things sorted out, and we hope to have a better date by then. The other thing I want to do is commend our staff for Big Trash. The Big Trash has gone very well the last couple of times, and I think you're to be commended for that. And that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 14, Mayor's and council members' announcements, comments, and proposals. And tonight I would like to start out by letting everybody know that over the last few days, like I had said earlier, I've been on the phone with our EPA representative, and one of the things that we are looking into that I was inquiring about is the state revolving fund for our drinking water and what options are there for us, and requesting help from them. Also asking what the qualifications are. Could you guide us in regards to the Superfund or brownfield contaminant cleanup? There's monies available from the government for that type of thing. And so, like I said, we're not sitting on our hands hoping that we just get a payday 50 years from now from some lawsuit. we've got to provide clean water, drinking water, and water in our lawns and everything else to our citizens. And so, and I know the city engineer has been working as long as I've been here in this position, trying to deal with this contaminant issue and what we're going to do to drill new wells. And that's anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 a well, from what I'm told. You've got to test the locations before you're going to bother putting a well in there, and that's about, from what I understand, about a $7,500 bill just to test to see if it's clean or not. They had picked a couple locations that we want to test that hopefully soon we will be getting done, so we can see if there are some locations that we could look into doing this. But just so you know, it's frustrating to every single one of us. You know, my yard's dying just like everybody else's. And so we're in this together, and this has been, like I said, ongoing. It didn't happen overnight. It certainly didn't happen with those of us sitting up here. It wasn't when this started. But as a family, the family of Bethany, the previous council, the council before them, and however long it's gone before that, have all been doing what they were capable and able to do in the moment that they were dealing with this. And so right now, this is where we are, and we're not ignoring it. I'm willing to fight it head on, and we will beat this and get over this as well. So it's extremely frustrating, though. I totally agree. With that, I would like to ask Mrs. Larson to start us out tonight.
Thank you. Turn my mic on. I have to add one more about the water because I told my constituent I would. She is a widowed woman just within the last year, and she keeps her house inside and out immaculate. She struggles very hard to do so. And she sent me some information that she asked that I tell the council. Forgive me for reading it because I left my paper on top of my computer, so I'm going to have to read it from here. She says, she says, you can tell the council that I'm very disappointed in them. I spent a ton of money repairing all my sprinklers and fertilizing the yard. And now for nothing. I can't stand around all day and hand water. There's a lot of waste in hand watering. One day, the entire back alley was full of water from someone who forgot. This woman has some good points. We've already addressed many of them, but the biggest one that hasn't been and needs to be looked at. I'm not trying to point fingers at anybody, but I have some concern about sprinklers that are going off at all hours of the night and mid-morning when we're all in bed asleep. And they're not well waters because they're in neighborhoods like mine. There's no water wells in my neighborhood, and they're going off. Now, my neighbors may be all mad at me about this, but when it comes to doing the right thing, this is the right thing. Now, I don't know what the solution is, but I think we need to think up something. Before I go any further, I want to thank the Leaf Committee for all the time and effort that they have spent. It's been a little trying for them at times. And I also want to thank the citizens that came out tonight to listen, to speak. It's nice and it's encouraging to us, I think, as a council, to know that you do care, because we care or we wouldn't be here. So thank you for that reinforcement. And when we fail, you be sure and let us know. That's more important even than in patting us on the back. There is one other thing I would like to bring up, or two, and one is about the water wells. And when I first came on the council, there was some discussion about the testing of a well. And it looked like it might be easier to get to that well because the lines were already run. And I would like for us to start there tomorrow morning and see what we need to do to move forward on that well. The other thing, this is something I have a conviction about, and I am not happy to have to mention it. But we have a charter that tells us that if we as council people move out of this city, we right then and there cease to be a council person. So I hate to say this, it was brought up tonight, but I think it needs to be addressed. And I am not happy about having to say anything about it. I'm sorry. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mr. Todd, I'll skip over to you this evening.
Some years back,
Several years back, Will Rogers said there's never a wrong time to do a right thing. And you got there, Brad? And there is a right thing to do, and that is I have very recently moved out of the city of Bethany, and I have talked with our police chief, I've talked with the mayor, I've talked to the city manager, I've talked to our city attorney, and they all advised me that I need to step down, and I'm going to do so on the 20th, which will be the next council meeting, will be my last official meeting here with the city of Bethany. And I would like to suggest for the builders, if there's any builders listening in, the city of Bethany has no townhouses or such that for patio homes for senior citizens. And we moved out of a large house into a little house and into a little patio home, gated community, and that's very much to our liking. And I would like to see those built in the city of Bethany. If we had them, I'd still be here. And so I'm reminded in 1951, General Douglas MacArthur, addressing the graduating class of West Point, he said, in his closing comments, he said, "Old generals never die, they just fade away." And so I'll be fading off into the sunset as of next council meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you for your service over a number of years, Councilman Todd, and you'll be missed. And we'll look forward to the next chapter. Just like to highlight something, especially in light of such a tragic week in the life of our nation. And there are things that can be focused on in the light of that are divisive. How do we solve that? How do we go from here? And that's not at all what I would like to say. But just in the midst of that we find continue ways to come together. And that starts right here in our homes, in our city, in our neighborhood. There was an event just a couple weeks ago at the Bethany Library. It was a screening of the PBS documentary about the American Creed and a community conversation through a panel, scholar-led discussion. The mayor was a part of that, several professors. What does it mean to be American? What are our commonalities? What are our diversities within that creed? And how do we function in those differences in ways that are equitable, in ways that are compassionate to one another? And so I just want to commend our community for that event, for that type of discussion. It was a small crowd, but conversations begin one-on-one and just with several. And so I commend for that. I look forward to more of those types of discussions and more ways that we as citizens begin to come together even through our differences. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Palmer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm frustrated by the water situation, and I've thought about that, and I think what we need to do is to adequately study the available funds that we do have and how we fund city government in Bethany. We need to tear it down. We need to look at every angle and look at what we're spending, where we're spending it, how we're spending it, and what we can do to improve the infrastructure and the services that we provide. We have to provide services to our residents. That's our obligation. And we need to allow the residents to come to an understanding as to where we spend our money. And it has to be broken down in a way that's understandable. If we have to blow up the format for the city budget so that we can have pie charts to indicate where something goes or what needs to be done, I think that's something that we should do. I'm all about transparency, and what I would ask is if people would reserve their judgment related to these issues until we've all had an opportunity to go through this budget and find a way to make this situation work and address these problems individually. It's going to take some time, it's going to take some investment, and I think we can get there. If we're going to be divisive between each other related to particular issues, that's going to be counterproductive. If we get together and understand that this is the process and this is how we need to get to the goal, that's where we need to be. And in my opinion, and I know that the mayor is heading this, and he is working tirelessly to get to that point. And there's a lot of things that do happen that are considered, that are possibilities that are either, I mean, literally dry holes or other situations that aren't feasible. So we're actively pursuing it. And I would ask that the public help us and come along to allow them to understand what we're doing and how we're doing it. The second issue, Mr. Mayor, is related to the interview process for the city attorney and the city manager. Those processes are ongoing and they're active, and we're making good headway in how we are considering these candidates. We had an interview today with a potential candidate for the city attorney job, and we have active candidates for the city manager. I honestly believe that process, when we get those people in place, will help facilitate where we want to go and how we want to do this. We will get there, and I would ask that you come along and help us to do that. And I would be remiss without mentioning that at one of these interviews on the 30th of July, I participated. My wife thankfully allowed me to do that on our 25th wedding anniversary. So I'd like to publicly acknowledge that and tell my wife, I love you, Angela. Thank you very much.
Before I move on to Jeff Knapp, that reminded me that I had mentioned in a couple responses to some Facebook posts that I'd be scheduling a town hall meeting to speak and talk about budget. And Councilmember Palmer reminded me with your comment, because I do think we are way past time asking the question, why do we do things the way we do things? I was recently in DC, and the head of the Interior told a story that he asked the question, why do we do this way? And when he got his answer, it was pretty pathetic. And that's at a national level. And he changed the way a process happened, taking something that was requiring 120 days to get approval down to much less than that, just because of the number of signatures that needed to be on there. And I won't even go into the story, but it was quite humorous to think that that's at a national level. And so for the city of Bethany, I think we are way past time asking the question, why do we do things the way we do things? And is it the best practice for us today? Because in all honesty, when you're dependent upon sales tax for your lifeblood of your municipality and everything that we're doing, we're handcuffed in the state of Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma is the only state in the union that municipalities do not get a portion of the ad valorem or property tax to help us with our budgeting. And when we have the best police, in my opinion, we've got the best fire, in my opinion, and we've got the best employees, in my opinion. And we like giving pay raises, but we have to, like I said earlier, look at the expense versus the revenue. And when your sales tax is not increasing, but the expenses continue to increase, when you roll up retirement and benefits and all of that, at some point in time you have to say, we can't afford it. And so we have to bring in more sales tax, more development, a bigger population if we can with mixed use. So there's a lot of things we're working on to try to address these issues, because we want the city of Bethany to be the best place in the world. I believe it is. I believe it can be better, but we have to address these issues. And I do not think that the best practice is to continue to rob Peter to pay Paul, which is exactly what the city of Bethany does. And I don't like it. And so I want to ask the question. So the town hall meeting will be hopefully in a couple weeks, so we can get all of our financial information together, because I'm all about transparency. That's why I ran for this. I wanted the citizens of Bethany to have a bigger voice and to know what's going on, and that's what we're pushing for. So with that, I will shut up. Councilmember Knapp.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. Sir, I didn't get your name, but I just wanted to thank you for your service to our country. That goes as well to any of the veterans that are here. Thank you. I also want to say thank you to the LEAF Task Force. You brought some good points up. Not exactly what I expected, to potentially raise rates on anything. No one wants to raise rates on anything, but we still have to pay for things as costs escalate. Mrs. Maurer, thank you for working with Councilmember Palmer and Amanda and any of the other staff members on Title 15. I think somebody said to any developers who are here or listening, Bethany's open for business. We want your business here. So one last thing, I do need to talk about the Back to School Bash, which is this Friday. The city is sponsoring the second Back to School Bash, and pardon me, I will be reading parts of this, and a Touch a Truck event. This Friday night from 5 to 9 in Eldon Lyon Park. Touch a Truck, if you're not familiar, it invites families, it invites just everyone to come and explore big trucks, emergency construction, transportation, electric, and other one-of-a-kind vehicles. They can sit in the seat, maybe even honk a horn. That'll be fun. I want to do that too. Following that, a couple other parts of that are, it's to support our local schools and kids who need things. Donations of school supplies. We want to stuff a bus. We want to fill a bus with school supplies. So please, I encourage everybody to come participate in that. There's 6 area companies that are bringing work trucks and 13 community groups and organizations that are going to help with games and fun for the kids. At the end of the event, there's a movie screening, Mary Poppins Returns, which I have not seen, at 9 o'clock at Eldon Lyon Park. So I'm not sure if this will be the end of our summer cinema series. Say that 3 times fast. One more after this, but come out to Eldon Lyon Park Friday night. 5 to 9 is the event, and then the movie. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Herron?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things tonight pertaining to water. One, I'd like to see either a resolution or a budget amendment for the settlement from the Oklahoma City Airport Trust to be solely used for the purpose of new water wells. If we could have that in an upcoming meeting. Water wells, I looked it up on what we did past night. They are allowed. In fact, there's a provision so where homeowners can drill their own well. And it is possible. It is a lot of work, but you can, in certain parts of the city, you can actually put in your own water well. Some of our water tables are incredibly shallow, 10 to 15 feet. So, and that is in 151 if you're interested. And then on a final note, Mr. Todd, thank you for your many years of service on both City Council and on Planning and Zoning. And I'd just like to thank you for the calming leadership that you had brought to this council. That is all.
Thank you. SR?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, thank everyone for coming out. A huge thanks. This is government at work. It's nice to see this many people we'd like to see here every week. A special thanks to the LEAF Committee. I know a couple of the council people have already mentioned that, but you guys did a great job. You were innovative. You were proactive. You know, it's refreshing when we live in a society that says, give me more, but don't raise my taxes, and you have a group of people saying, we want to pay for what we're getting. I don't know that that's ever been done before. I've never heard anybody do it, so it was very refreshing, and I think you came up with some great ideas. Everyone has mentioned the water problems, and I will apologize if I didn't show empathy in regard to everyone's lawns. I made some statements a couple of weeks ago about, and what I meant to say was, you know, stay within the guidelines. I go down my street and I see 2 or 3 people watering right now in the middle of the day. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. You know, put those water savers on your shower heads, on your sinks. You know, if those toilets are leaking, every little bit helps. We don't think about that, but just a leaky toilet can use up thousands of gallons of water a month. So I think in the big picture, we don't necessarily have a solution, obviously, tonight, and we're not going to have one tomorrow. The long-term solution to our water problem is going to be a comprehensive approach with not only the government side involved, but the participation of all of the citizens. Hopefully, I agree with the mayor, we're going to get there. We're going to get there, and I know it's difficult to say be patient. That's not what you want to hear. But please be patient. And we're doing our best, I think, with what we've got to work with right now. The bright side of this is it's August 5th, if my, pretty
like
close,
the 6th.
pretty close, 5th or 6th. You know, we've got another 4 or 5 weeks of this type of weather, and we're going to see a huge drop, and we're not going to need that amount of water that we are using right now. Again, at the sake of being redundancy, I'm going to repeat something that I heard for years and years and years. The last thing that our city manager said was, turn on those sprinklers and let's water those lawns, because it made good sense. It brought in a tremendous amount of revenue. We just don't have that option right now. We need to get back to the point of where someone is saying, turn on those sprinklers, because they bring revenue to this city. Thanks again for everybody being here tonight.
Thank you. And pray for rain. That would be helpful. And I don't know if it's the well that you're referring to, Mrs. Larson, but I do know that a conversation about a well, and they were looking into it, and there was a well that was not feasible for that to be working. I will have to talk to Mr. Caton to find out if that's the same thing you're referring to. Or
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. One thing, and I feel horrible about this. We've had a police officer, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he's been off for a number of months now, and I would ask that you keep him in your thoughts and prayers, that he has a full recovery and can do what he wants to do and finish his career with the city of Bethany. And I feel horrible that this wasn't brought up months ago, but it's never too late. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. Item 15 is new business. Do we have any new business? With no new business, I declare us adjourned until August 20th, 2019. I call to order the Bethany Public Works Authority. Item 1 is consent docket A through C. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Please cast your votes. Item 2 is new business. Do we have new business? With no new business, I declare us adjourned until August 20th, 2019. I call to order the Bethany Hospital Trust. Item 1 is consent docket A and B. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes. Item 2 is new business. Do we have any new business? With no new business, I declare us adjourned until August 20th, 2019. I call to order the Bethany Development Authority. Item 1 is consent docket A and B. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes. Item 2 is new business. Do we have any new business? With no new business, I declare us adjourned until August 20th, 2019, and we are adjourned.